If you like banana bread, you're gonna love this sourdough banana bread. Adding sourdough to banana bread makes it extra flavorful and super moist. And here it is. It is so, oh my gosh, when you bake it, get the batter going in under 10 minutes and your kitchen is gonna smell like a cozy Sunday afternoon. I'm gonna show you how easy and simple it actually is to make this sourdough banana bread. I always like to get my sourdough starter going the morning of the baking. And this one I kept in the fridge just like it is. I have a method where I pack it with a bunch of flour. I didn't do that with that one because I was actually baking a few days before. And as you can see, I'm not measuring anything. I'm just adding some water and some flour. I know exactly the consistency that I'm going for. And of course, it's not 100% precise, but if you go for a pancake batter, thick pancake batter like consistency, you're going to be super close. And here it is. You can see that it is that thick batter like consistency. And I can always add a little bit more water if I needed to. Because I feel like I have good bacteria on my hands, I don't mind those getting into the sourdough starter. Now for the recipe in the afternoon, and the full recipe is in the description box below, so you don't need to take any notes while you're watching. I am starting with the flour, and I know this is a little bit maybe old school, but I like sifting my flour because I feel like it gives me a better result at the end. Mostly people sift flour because it gives you more consistent volume results, but we're not super accurate here with this sourdough banana bread. I'm adding the baking soda right to it and the salt because sometimes I have these little tiny lumps in both the baking soda and the salt. And then, you get these little pockets in your banana bread. And by sifting all of this, I am eliminating that chance. It's actually kind of fun. If you have kids, they sometimes like to help with that too, with the flour sifting. You can also omit that step entirely. I have some melted butter, and to that I'm adding the sugar. And this is some brown sugar. You can also use dark brown sugar. This is light brown. And if you don't have brown sugar, you can simply mix regular white sugar with molasses because this is exactly what brown sugar is. And if you smell it, you'll detect the molasses smell. To beat the butter and the sugar, I like to use a hand mixer because it gives me a little bit more control over the speed and where I'm going. I have a stand mixer, but for a small amount like this, I really like the hand mixer. And I'm going for white and fluffy. That creates little air pockets in the butter and sugar, and that makes for better dough afterwards. And I'm adding 2 eggs, but you want to add 1 egg at a time and beat until it's light and fluffy again, because eggs are basically liquid and butter, fat, don't necessarily want to mix. And that's why you're going 1 egg at a time, especially if you have more than 2 eggs, let's say 5 eggs, you really want to do that. And I'm shortening the time here, but basically I mix it on high until it's light and fluffy again. My homemade vanilla extract, I love the vanilla flavor with the banana bread. And again, I'm not measuring, I'm kind of going by eyeballing here. I think that's good enough, and a little bit more vanilla is always better. My sourdough starter has nicely risen in the 6 hours since I started it in the morning, but this recipe also works with a sourdough discard if that's what you're doing, because we will have the baking soda as a leavening agent, and so we're not necessarily relying 100% on the sourdough starter, but the sourdough starter reacts with the baking soda and creates the airiness in it. And these bananas are not as ripe as I would like them to be. Ideally, you want really ripe bananas. We're talking brown bananas. You typically can't find them in the store, but you can do a few things. So I don't mind having these sort of ripe enough for eating bananas, but you can, in their peel, bake them in the oven at 250 degrees for about half an hour until they turn brown. You can also peel them and cut them into chunks or break them into chunks and freeze them, because that also breaks up the the cells, the water in the cells, and makes the bananas really soft. And then it gives it a bit better of banana flavor. But again, this banana bread is delicious, whatever you do. And I'm mashing this. You can see that my bananas are not really where I want them to be because they're pretty solid still. But like I said, it doesn't matter. It's still really delicious. And as you're mashing those bananas, you can either leave some chunks, which I really like because then I have a bite where I'm maybe biting on a piece of banana. And if you're not so crazy about that, you can totally mash it into one pretty even, homogeneous mashed banana mass. I don't even know what to call it. We're adding that to the butter egg mixture with the sourdough starter and the vanilla extract. And I'm giving this another good whirl. You can mix it really on high for a bit until it's all incorporated. And here you can't overmix. However, once you add the flour, baking soda, salt mixture, you only want to incorporate it because if you overmix this, you will activate the gluten structure and then the banana bread will be a little bit more dense and a little bit more tough, and we want it to be nice and soft and fluffy. I'm just incorporating it. I am doing the least amount I can, and it's okay if it's a tiny bit shaggy. For my husband, I love to add walnuts. Pecans are great. You can add chocolate chips. There's a whole bunch of things you can add to this as you like, as you know, your preference. But again, just incorporate it, don't overmix it. I have a loaf pan, 9x5, and I love using avocado oil and a little brush, pasty brush, to brush all the sides with the avocado oil. You can also butter it, but you could also use parchment paper and then you can simply lift the bread out of the loaf pan. But I find that the butter or the oil works especially well when I add some flour to it because it creates almost like a barrier for the batter and nothing sticks, you'll see. I'm shaking this around just to make sure that some of the flour gets to the sides, and the sides I'm not so worried about. It's really mostly the bottom where I want the banana bread to come out. Now we're adding the batter, or is it dough? I can't really decide. It's pretty stiff when you look at it. But this is where you want to make sure that the walnuts are not just all in one area, because then you'll be biting on a bunch of walnuts in one area in one slice and don't have anywhere else. And you could also add some other ingredients here. I obviously preheated my oven about 10 minutes before I want to bake the banana bread, or depending on how long it takes your oven to preheat to come to 350 degrees. And I'm just going to spread this around a little bit to give it a nice upper surface. And then I'm ready to put it in the oven and bake it for just about an hour. I always like to do the little wooden toothpick test, and you want the banana bread to be just done, not over baked. And if you have a little bit on the toothpick, that's perfectly fine, because the banana bread will be hot on the inside and it's going to continue baking just a little bit. So you would like to slightly underbake it, then overbake it to not make it too dry. I'm using a knife to just walk around the edges here to make sure that the banana bread comes out, and you'll see that in a moment it actually comes out really easily. The only challenge is that the loaf pan is pretty hot to the touch and you gotta have some pot holders to not burn your hands. But here it is, came out just like a dream. Again, you can also use parchment paper, but I think this works really well. Now we're gonna let it cool off before we slice it, and here it is. It makes the house smell absolutely amazing, and it is super moist and delicious, and I can't wait to dig into it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any comments or questions down below, and I'll see you in the next video.